Welcome to my channel. You are listening to Sheroy's voice, and this is the One Mic podcast. I cannot tell you how long I have been waiting to say that. And in fact, to be honest with you, the reason that I've started this channel and the title of the podcast will give you an indication as to what really made me get my ass into gear. I was on the train, I had my earphones in, listening to some 90s, noughties hip hop. Anyone that knows me knows that 95% of what I listen to and probably 50% of my personality, and the other 50% is Arsenal. And I was thinking about when I was going to get this off the ground, and on shuffle, one of the greatest hip hop tracks of all time, One Mic by Nas, comes on. And Nas is quite literally just shouting into my ears saying, all I need is one mic. And I thought, Nas is right. That is all you need. So here we are. We're up and running. This is going to be a weekly show. It is only going to be Arsenal, but the channel is called Sheroy's Voice for a reason. I've intentionally kept it quite wide because, as I said, Arsenal's not the only thing that I like talking about. But look, I know what the market is for now. And I need to begin by saying I cannot thank the people who have already subscribed to this channel enough, because they were also one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. I had basically a ghost YouTube channel when I was on AFTV quite regularly. And I noticed that people started subscribing to it even though there weren't any uploads. And as soon as I gave it a handle and put a logo up, I think the channel's at around 1,500 subs. And for me, the notion that even 10 people want to listen to what I have to say is insane. So if this podcast reaches 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people or more, I'll be happy. So thank you guys first and foremost, and thank everyone at AFTV, obviously, for putting me on. But listen, enough of the intro. I want to begin this podcast by talking about why I place so much importance on this season. I know that we've just beaten Lyon and there's a whole preseason to discuss, but I want to begin by talking about the importance of the season. That we can move on to the recent preseason conclusions, what the early fixtures might mean. The importance of this season for me actually stems from something that my father always tells me. He says it's a lot easier for the man who has slept on the floor to get used to sleeping on the bed than it is for the man who is used to sleeping on the bed to get used to sleeping on the floor. And I know it may not be immediately apparent why that's relevant, but I say that because I know the Arsenal fan base has loads of differing age groups, and they would have seen varying levels of success, right? There are a lot of people. I mean, James, someone who I regularly pod with, this guy hasn't really seen a properly successful Arsenal side. But then other people that I pod with every so often, like Turkish, who's a similar age to me, we know what it was like. I'm not saying that we were winning 5 Premier Leagues in a row. I'm not saying that we had a treble. I'm not saying that we had the level of dominance the City have right now, but we were a damn good team. And if we weren't winning it, we were right up there. Okay. So I think a lot of the importance that I place upon this season is because I'm kind of getting used to sleeping on the bed again. And I know everyone in the comments immediately, if they're rival fans watching this, will say, sleeping on the bed, you haven't won anything. But let me explain. We used to regularly come up against City, Liverpool, sometimes even a Chelsea, hold 3, 4, 5, 6. No problems. We would get smoked, and the post-match reaction would be, you know what, we did well for 15 or 20, but we haven't quite got the squad, or they spent loads of money, or we got a dodgy red card, or there was a bad... We don't have that anymore. And I'm getting used to not having that anymore. We used to be in the transfer market, and there would be players that would go to other clubs, and we'd just sit there and go, yeah, but we don't spend that much. We can't buy that kind of player. Over 100 million on Declan Rice. Over 60 million on someone like Kai Havertz. Look at the amount that we were willing to pay for Mudryk, if those reports are true. And to be honest, out of all of the ones that didn't materialize, I think that one did actually hold a bit of weight. So in terms of a commanding presence in the transfer market, I'm getting used to sleeping on the bed. I don't want to go back to sleeping on the floor. I do not want to go back to sleeping on the floor. And my worry is if this season doesn't materialize into what we all want it to materialize into, there is a consequence. And I'll get into that. But the language that people use for this season, okay? The language that I'm hearing, and I listen to a lot of Arsenal pods, by the way, so I'm not singling anyone out here. This is quite universal. Example number 1. I expect Arsenal to win the Premier League this year. how can you... This isn't me saying that I don't want or think we ought to win the Premier League this year, but I just want to drill down into the language here. Expect. If you've never been to the gym before, or if you used to go to the gym but you fell off, and you walk into the gym and there's someone there that's squatting 180 kilos and you're squatting 60, even if you're incredible in the gym for the next 3 years, 3 years later, will you genuinely go in expecting to lift more than that guy? Because that guy right now is Manchester City. You probably shouldn't expect it, but you should desperately strive for it. And you should consider it a very realistic prospect. And you should do absolutely everything within your power and leave no stone unturned to ensure that it happens. That all aligns with the way that I feel about the importance of this season. But expect, I don't know. And a lot of people will say, well, you ought to expect it because of the amount of money that the fans had to pay to watch absolute dross, for example. That is something that's often leveled at me, okay? But I still can't in good faith sit there and say I expect to beat this Herculean Manchester City side that have won 4 of the last 5. As I say, I think it's a realistic prospect, and if we get certain things right, we're definitely up there. Do I expect to challenge? Absolutely, because it would be, to be honest with you, I think it would have to be a total malfunction if we don't challenge this year. But I also hear the language of it is a must for Arsenal to win the Premier League this season. That must word, I think that is an online thing. I think that has very much happened because of the social media element of this. But is it a must? There, it might be. And I'm not saying it's a must because it's unforeseeable to lose to Manchester City. I've just delved into that, but I mentioned consequences earlier, all right? And this is why I think it might be a must this year. And it's because of the fallout if we don't, all right? I always try and draw upon examples that are relevant to me, and I think, to be honest with you, it'll be relevant to a lot of people that listen to this. If you're I'm going to use an actual real life example for myself, all right? I worked at the first firm that I worked at. It was actually described by the guy who ran the team as a project. And I had faith in that leader. And he always said that, look, if you stick around for this long, this is the kind of team I'm going to build. These are the kinds of cases we're going to bring in. This is the kind of career that you're going to have. And this is how your reputation is going to be enhanced. The reputation of the firm is going to be enhanced. And you're going to love what you do. If he didn't deliver year after year after year after year, and it was tangible to me that he was delivering, and everyone around me, keeping that core group in his team together would have been impossible. But I stuck around there for 10 years, and a lot of people are still there after 10 years. My point here is faith in leadership. Everyone, look, I absolutely... You know, I'm going to come out and say it, even though some people call me an Arteta sexual. I didn't even know that was a word until I saw that in the YouTube comments. Someone actually commented on, I think, 3 videos that I appeared in a row and said, who is this Arteta sexual? I adore the guy for what he's done to this club and what he's done to this team. I don't need to go back to what I was saying before, but we really had a lot of dross in our team. There was no expectation for us to win anything. There wasn't even an expectation for us to finish ahead of Tottenham some years. All right, he's absolutely transformed that. But 1 year becomes 2, 2 year becomes 3. There's talk of a project, there's talk of progress, there's talk of evolution. 3 years become 4, 4 years become 5. Look at player contracts. Who are the most important players in our team right now? I mean, you could look at Bukayo Saka. I think his contract expires in 2027. I know it sounds like a long time away. At the end of this season, you're into 2025, okay? So 1 season after that, Bukayo Saka's into the final year of his contract. And we all know what happens with players when they're in the final year of their contract, particularly when they hold value. A club can't afford to just sit on them and let them go for free because that's catastrophic. Look at what happened with Kylian Mbappe and look at the amount of money that PSG could have got. Arsenal aren't going to do that. The Cronkies aren't going to do that. William Saliba, I think, also contracted until 2027. Gabriel, I think, contracted until 2027. Rice and Odegaard, again, super important players, contracted until 2028. So there has been a clear vision of when we need to start achieving that level of tangible success, and it seems to be now. If I'm looking at the end dates of these contracts, you need to be able to entice them to sign a new contract basically at the end of this season if you want to retain a lot of these players, maybe next season, maybe. As much as they will love the club, as much as they are loyal to the club, as much as they will love the manager, these guys, I know it sounds ridiculous because they make a lot of money, but these guys do have a finite career. These guys do have a finite career, and they'll be looking at, and put the money aside for a minute, they'll be sat there saying, okay, I'm in my mid-20s. The intensity with which I play football and modern football requires me to play, I don't know how many years I have left. And even though this is great, we keep coming close and we don't get over the line. Maybe I need to go somewhere where they do get over the line. Maybe I do need to go to Real Madrid. God forbid. I don't think we're at the point now where we're looking at selling players to Manchester City, but do I think it's that far-fetched that the odd player might just go, that might be the option? If Pep extends, I don't know. And I know this is sort of, what's the word, catastrophizing to an extent, right? But that is a real worry for me. It's not necessarily that we won't be able to pallet this season if things don't go our way, but it's what the players will be thinking. And this might be an unpopular opinion, but I wouldn't necessarily blame players for wanting to leave if we don't win a major anytime soon, because they do have finite careers. But I caveat that, and let me tell you why. If the manager, Edu, the ownership, demonstrate throughout the rest of this transfer window in January that we are doing absolutely everything we can in the market to give ourselves the best chance possible at getting those majors, and therefore, I assume, live up to the promises that we made to these players when we offered them new contracts, then there is an argument as to, well, actually, maybe the players should have just been better and got us over the line. Maybe they should stay until they finish the job. Fine. But what if that doesn't happen? What if this year we've brought in Calafiori, we bring in Marino, and what if for one reason or another we can't get the business that we want done? Can we then honestly say we've done absolutely everything within our power to ensure that the dreams of these players and the fans are realized? Can those players then look at the ownership and say, I have complete faith in the fact that you are giving us absolutely everything we need to get over the line, and now it's on us? I'm just throwing hypotheticals out there because they are sort of nagging concerns on my end, and that is ultimately where I think the importance of this season lies. So how do you get there? How do you get there? I've mentioned signings. One massive area. I mean, whenever you're looking to improve, you have to look at where things went wrong, and you have to think of a way of rectifying them so that you can implement that going forward. The biggest thing for me last year, Manchester City at the Etihad were undefeated at home. There were a few draws in there, but they were undefeated at home. That is crucially important. And the frustrating thing is, when the teams that would traditionally slap us up at the Emirates came to the Emirates last year, we beat them. We beat Manchester City. I'm not saying it was comfortable. I'm not saying we walked all over them, but we beat them. They didn't score. I was at the Emirates for the Liverpool game. I was there. Odegaard, after the event, came out and said that was arguably the best atmosphere he played in all season, and that was an emphatic second half performance, putting 3 past them, and that really was a must-win, if you remember, because Liverpool were pretty much, they looked like they were going to storm it. I think they'd only lost 1 game at that point, and that was to Tottenham, and that was a dodgy one. We looked a lot better than them, and I'm going to digress here, but I'm talking about Manchester City a lot. I don't think we can write Liverpool off this year. If anyone watched them, I think it was against Sevilla today. I mean, admittedly, I didn't watch the whole game. I was watching us, but some good goals, some interesting football, some direct football, some intricate play, great on the break, but they have a good amount of possession. Jota is firing. Salah looks brilliant in that support role, but still gets goals. A lot of their players have been saying Diaz hasn't been the same since the injury, got a brace today. Really high caliber goals, So a lot of people that are saying, don't worry about Liverpool. Klopp's not there. I don't know, man. I don't know. You might live to regret that, but anyway. So how do we get there? One thing is the home record. All right, the home record is It needs to improve. I'm not saying we were bad at home, but some of the games that we lost last year at home, we all know that we shouldn't have lost those games. Arteta knows we shouldn't have lost those games. The players know that we shouldn't have lost those games. So why did we lose those games? A lot of the football that we played, I mean, the Aston Villa game, we should have buried it. We did create enough to finish that game. I think people know where I'm going with this. We did create enough to finish that game, but we didn't. Fulham at home, we were up. We should have locked that off. But to be honest, there I don't actually think we created enough to really, really warrant winning that game. But we were sloppy. We went ahead and we gave away a poor goal at the end. West Ham at home, we created enough to win that game, and we should not have conceded that many goals, right? So when I'm talking about Fulham scoring and us being a little bit sloppy, when I'm talking about West Ham scoring and us being a bit sloppy at the back, I think defensively, with the additions of Calafiori, with Timber coming back in, we're addressing that quite well. And I'd like to think that this season at home, even though we were tight, this year we should be able to lock it off. But putting the chances that we create away is actually a problem that manifested itself against Lyon in the last game of pre-season. I look at the 2 goals that we scored. I mean, it's fantastic that we scored the 2 goals from the set pieces, and I'm going to get onto that. But we weren't good enough from open play. I don't know if this is me being overly critical, but we weren't good enough from open play. And I mean, we got openings, but we didn't put them away. And I'm thinking of the 2 Saka chances at the back post. I'm thinking of Havertz when he gets in behind, and you're not entirely sure whether he's trying to square it or whether it's a shot. I think there's one that was pulled back to Odegaard. It was a good save, but he's more than capable of scoring from there. And I'm sure there were others. But what I'm saying here is, gunman. In the words of Tony Yayo, 1 shot, 1 kill was the deal. That is what we need. And I've been banging on about this since the start of the window, and I'm not even going to use the word 9 anymore. I'm not even going to use the word striker anymore. I'm not going to use the words attacking forward anymore. The only way I can describe it is goal scorer. Proven goal scorer. And if that sort of thing is one of the reasons why I think that we slipped up last year, even though we were incredible, and if that's something that's still manifesting itself now against Lyon, you have to think that it's something that we want to address in this window. And I hope and pray that we do, because that for me is how we get that much closer to Manchester City. And you know what, I've just spoken about City as if there's no one else challenging. That for me is how we get over the line. And I've mentioned preseason. I want to talk about preseason a bit more, okay? Because I'm not going to delve into the tour, because anyone that wants to hear my thoughts on the tour, they probably want to hear James's thoughts more, because he's infinitely smarter than I am. But we do the Gooniverse podcast on his channel every week. We've dealt with that in some depth, all right? But I do want to talk about Lyon today, because I was watching that, and look, I did love the fact that we scored the set piece goals. Rice's delivery, by the way, for those 2, incredible. And Saliba and Gabriel, the 2 bad boys from the back, bang, bang. Thank you. I'm glad we haven't lost that. And I'm glad Arteta, post-match, he was asked about it. And I think the question was something along the lines of, do you want to, or are you content to rest on your laurels, or are you going to keep doing the same thing with your set pieces, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it? And his answer was, no. We need to keep doing that, but we are going to evolve. We are going to switch it up, because I think a lot of people basically last year, I mean, look, they cottoned on to the fact that we had the back post overload, but they couldn't do much about it. But there were always intricate ways of ensuring that even though you have the overload, certain men were free, and and I have full faith they're going to continue evolving with that. So that was a quality element of what I saw today. But again, it was 2 goals, and we didn't get much from open play. The other thing that I gleaned from the end of this preseason, again from Arteta's press conference, I didn't like Havertz in midfield last year. I don't know whether I didn't like him in midfield because he was sort of ostensibly worse than Xhaka was in that position, and he cost a fair bit, or whether he was actually like quite visibly better when he was up front and had a far more positive impact. Maybe a bit of both. But he was asked, he said, look, is Kai going to play up front now for you? And Arteta said, look, the numbers that we have in midfield, we need him in both positions. And so I think we are going to see Havertz in midfield a fair bit this season. So anyone that thinks that that's done, it's not. because Arteta expressly refers to the numbers in midfield and what he wants from Kai. And he also gave the sort of, and I get this, he gave the, he gave the sort of horses for courses reason. He said, look, there are certain games where someone like him will need to play in midfield. Fine. But I don't want that to be the stock, because Partey, Rice, Odegaard, I like. I prefer Jorginho in midfield and moving Rice to the left 8 if need be. And Mourinho will add something to that midfield. And I think we will bring him in. I've actually, Chris Hudson messaged me the other day on Twitter, and he was like, on the Gooniverse podcast, you were talking about Mourinho like we have it and we don't. I was like, yeah, you know what? You're probably right. I shouldn't take these things for granted, but I think we're going to bring him in. All right. Bukayo Saka. For me, our best attacking player, our most important attacking player when it comes to goals. I think there is a debate as to whether Odegaard is actually our most important attacking player, but maybe I'll save that for another show. And it's difficult. The thing is, he is so good at such a young age, and he's such a talisman that it's very difficult to suggest areas in which he can improve. But today, drifting off at the back post with those long balls in, and 2 headers, look, I know they went on target, but I haven't even seen him showing that intent, to get to the back post, get on the end of the cross. And that is something that I think he could add to his game. And all I saw when he was doing that, I had flashbacks. I'm not comparing him. I'm not saying he's at their level yet. Do you know how many goals Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah got like that? Drifting off at the back post and just licking one in. You can get an extra 5 Premier League goals a season just by doing that if you're in the right position, right? So that is something that I really, really took away from today. And the other thing I was looking at, man, I've been campaigning for a left-sided traditional attacking 8, if that makes any sense, for the whole window, or a specialist midfielder in that area. And I think Mourinho will be that guy. But I was saying that because I thought Rice was much better in the defensive midfielder position. I know it's only one game. I know it's only Lyon. Some of those underlaps and some of that delivery over the top, the diagonals, the way he was getting in behind, and some of those slightly longer shots that he was popping off, I liked it. I like the intent. And I think more importantly, Arteta likes it and Declan Rice likes it. So if we get the best out of him in that position, that's another takeaway. Me sitting there thinking that Rice is going to operate in the 6 exclusively, maybe not. Maybe Declan Rice is going to play in the 8. And fine. Once Mourinho comes in, I'm actually quite confident in that midfield. And I've spoken enough about where I think we need to strengthen. And I do think that if we strengthen in that area, we're on good footing. We're on good footing. But that brings the preseason to a close. And to be honest, aside from the extent to which we brought in players, we came out relatively injury free. Although Tomiyasu looks like he's out for a few weeks, and Arteta says he is going to have to work hard, but he somewhat dismisses the Timber niggle, which was a relief. But we've come out. We've beaten Man United. We've drawn against Bournemouth, and that was a very, very early preseason game. We lost against Liverpool, and I say that's a good thing, because pre-season is kind of like sparring if you're a boxer. You don't want it all your way. You do want someone to sort of keep you honest and say, hold on, you're beatable. Yeah. So you don't strut into that season overconfident. So that was actually, and we weren't bad in that game. They were just more clinical. And then Leverkusen, we were formidable. That first half, boy, that got me ready for the season. And then today a slight drop off, but it was a win and a clean sheet and debut for Calafiori. So all in all, successful preseason. Bring on the Premier League, man. Wolves, home. Villa, away. Brighton, at home. Needless to say, not only do I expect, and I use that word intentionally, not only do I expect to win all 3, I expect to win the Wolves game quite comfortably. I want to get some revenge when it comes to Villa, because those 2 losses last year pissed me off. In fact, they didn't. They upset me. I was distraught after that second Villa loss. I want revenge. And Brighton at home, I think 31st of August, 30th of August, transfer window closes. So you're looking at a fully assembled squad before the Brighton game. After the Brighton game, there's a fortnight off of the Premier League. And then there's the small matter of Tottenham away. We need to get our business done, preferably before the Villa game, certainly before the Brighton game. so that Arteta has 2 weeks to get whoever that new signing is up to speed, and we're ready for Spurs away. Because look, I know a lot of people are saying that Spurs away is one of those games that you'd much rather play at the beginning of the season than the end of the season. But Spurs away for me, it's squeaky bum time whenever we play them, no matter how much better than them we are, right? And I know that we're sort of getting used to not losing to them, and the year before doing the double on them. But Ange looked all right. Ange looked all right in segments of last year. And even though he's not getting back the way that Tottenham fans would want him to get backed, they are spending a bit of money on someone like Solanke can get goals for them if those wingers get their act together. And Kulusevski's looked good pre-season too, right? So look, it's not a Tottenham show anyway. But I want to be ready for that game. So I'm looking at these early fixtures, not just in terms of performances, not just in terms of results that ought to replicate that post-Dubai form when we're talking about the games like Wolves and Brighton at the Emirates. But I do want a win against Villa to just right that wrong. And that's something that Arteta and this Arsenal side have been very good at, righting that wrong. So that looked like, and you want to start as you mean to go on. You want to start as you mean to go on. One thing that we do know about having to win the Premier League is if a team like Manchester City or Liverpool are streaks ahead of you very early on, it's so difficult to claw it back. It's so difficult to claw it back. But a word that Arteta uses is belief. A hell of a lot. Now, a lot of people are saying, boy, Villa away, Spurs away, City away. You come through that, you're looking nice. Yeah, but can you imagine what the players are thinking? These are some of the toughest tests that we could arguably have all season, and we've dispatched them. August and September are so, so important. And as soon as that pre-season game against Lyon finished, I was waiting for the penalties and they didn't happen. I mean, not that I wanted to watch them, but I went into Premier League mode early. I immediately thought, okay, this is a big week now before the Premier League starts. We need to get everyone back into the zone of these aren't friendlies anymore. This isn't a question of fitness anymore. You know what? Hold on. Fitness. Why are so many people mentioning the weather and the conditions when they're talking about the intensity drop-off today? Because it's August and it's in London, and it is this hot every year in August and September. Are we legitimately going to use climate change as a reason why we might not be as good as we ought to be at the start of a season? If it is the heat, we need to get better at that, right? We need to get better at that. But there isn't much that we need to get better at, because having said everything that I've just said, we look good. We look good. Odegaard looks immense. Saliba and Gabriel have come straight back into that team, and they are commanding at the back and they are commanding at the front. Zinchenko going forward has actually looked like I'm not saying he's perfect, but he looks like he's taken heed of this notion that if you are going to play, you and I know that you're not defensively what this team requires in certain games. You need to make it count going forward. And he's been doing that. Declan Rice today was absolutely immense. Bukayo Saka, you can see him getting back up, but he looks great. Trossard, touch of class when he's been on. Jesus, I think someone's had a word with Jesus. I genuinely, the few times that I've seen him in pre-season, it looks like he's now occupying far more advanced and central positions and trying not to drop off so much. I hope that's not circumstantial. And I hope that when people are pressing us, he still manages to do that. Because if he's in those areas, we need a big season for him too. There have been moments where Kai Havertz in pre-season has looked fantastic. Arteta's messaging throughout this pre-season has been immense. There are a lot of positives. And I'm excited to not only watch this season and see where we end up, but I'm excited to go through this season with you guys, the community, the people that sub to this channel, the people that don't sub to this channel, the people that come here to cuss me out in the comments, whatever it is. I'm going to be here weekly, and I'm going to treat this. It's actually quite cathartic. I might just start treating this like therapy. I might, if there's demand for it, I might turn this into a weekly live as opposed to weekly pre-recorded content, so I can just get involved with the chat and we can therapize together. Because I think that's something that, even if you're doing well, that's something that a lot of Arsenal fans need, because my God, it is not healthy how invested we get with this team. But I've been talking a lot about hypotheticals. I'm just going to have a sip of this, because doing a podcast by yourself is hard work. I've been talking about hypotheticals. It is a fantasy to win the Premier League, but it's a realistic one. Let's talk about fantasy Premier League. And I'm introducing this segment for selfish reasons. I'm that guy in fantasy Premier League that if I'm in a league with like 10 people, I'm top 3. But if I'm in these mega leagues, I'm not even top 500. I need your help to get there. So the first question I need to ask you, if you're assembling your fantasy Premier League team, you and I probably both feel like Edu operating in the transfer market right now. Sat there going, why is everyone so expensive? Saka, what, 10? Cole Palmer, 10.5? Erling Haaland, 15. 15. Salah, 12.5. Even Eze, I think you're looking at about 7. Ollie Watkins, 9. Saliba, Gabriel, 6. Trent, unaffordable. But I want them all. I don't want to miss out on any, so I'm coming to you lot. Let me simplify this. I've got 2 11s ready. Go to my Twitter page, at Sheroy's Voice. They're up there. Do I go for Salah or do I go for Haaland? Let me know in the comments. I don't even have Cole Palmer. Salah and Haaland, are they a must? I need to know. And I'm going to show you my 11 every week. And I'm going to talk you through what I probably should have done and didn't do. And I might create an FPL mini league. Let's see. See, this is what I mean. I'm getting carried away with myself. I said, all I need is one mic and now I'm trying to start a bloody FPL mini league. But I'm here by myself. I actually like interacting with people on podcasts, but I don't have anyone on here with me. Nah, I sound like Akon in Mr. Lonely. It's not that bad. I'm enjoying this. But I want to interact with you lot, and I like to laugh. So at the end of every show, I've got a little segment for you, and it's called Wrong Answers Only. It's pretty self-explanatory, but for anyone that doesn't know what Wrong Answers Only is, I'm going to ask a question, and in the comments, you're going to let me know a wrong answer, but I want you to make it the funniest answer. Laugh out loud levels, and I'm reading it out on the next show. Top 3 are getting read out on the next show. I might switch the question up every week, but wrong answers only. Today's question. Easy one to start off with. I've got a few in my head already, but I'm trying to give you the Mesut Ozil assist with this one. Wrong answers only. What is Erik ten Hag's favourite song and why? Let me know. That brings to an end the One Mic podcast. This is the debut show on Sheroy's Voice. This is going to be weekly. Big up everyone who has subscribed. Big up everyone who has shown me love. You guys are the reason that I've done this. And big up Max. The banner, the background, the editing, the logo, like all of it is Max. The guy is a genius and he's a mind reader. I didn't even have to tell him. And it looked pretty sick. The One Mic podcast returns next week. You've been listening to Sheroy's Voice. Until next time, people.